Any questions?
Are there questions from the board regarding this report?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Archer?
Go ahead.
No,
You-
no, I
go-
insist.
no,
No,
you
Mr.
go.
Mayor, no,
No,
you.
no, Mr. No, Mr.
Okay. Thank you. I did have a question. Last year, we had a long discussion of taxpayer money going to Heartland Vision. And we decided that that wasn't a good expenditure of taxpayer money. After 5 years of subsidies, $300,000 of taxpayer money to go into Heartland Visioning, and yet here it is back, $60,000. And I'd like to ask you why.
That might be one for Doug.
It was our anticipation from comments we've heard from individual JEDO members that you at least wanted to discuss that. That's part of your budget consideration, so it's up for your option whether or not to consider that. So we've heard comments from several of you that wanted to at least discuss that option this year.
And maybe John can answer, but what would happen if we took that money out? Would the private sector make up the $60,000?
I don't.
Is it that important to the private sector, or is it just tax
It
driven?
would not be appropriate for me to comment for John, but
Okay.
maybe I should let John address that.
Okay.
And I would note that Mr. Hunter is scheduled to, or listed to speak before us.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mayor Wolgast.
thank you. And this would be a question perhaps to Doug or Scott. Would you list the positions that you say we have the salaries here of 5.5 positions? Would you list the titles of those positions, just so I think it's good to know the work, or who is included in this, who is included that in the Go Topeka budget? And that's a bit unfair, I understand, not having it in advance, but you can make them up as long as they're accurate as you go along.
Yeah, and I do apologize. I don't know all the titles. I know we have the Director of New Business Development, which is Molly.
I'm sorry, could you?
I'm sorry, the Director of New Business Development.
Mhm.
Okay. We have and I'm not sure on the 5.5 whether that includes the small business development or the entrepreneur. It does not. Okay. That's fine. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure. We have, I'm just going to go down my list. We have our research analysis. We have our administrative support. Right. We have, I'm sorry, I'm going down a list here as I go. We have our research analysis. We have our executive assistant. We have the halftime person also works and really is pretty much full-time allocated to the small business, but we cover half of it in our general budget. And we have our existing business person. How many have I done?
I think that's
Did I
five.
cover that?
1, 2, 3. I've got 4.5.
Okay, so I'm one short. Going down my list here, I apologize. And then I've got two other, we have a couple other halftime people. We have, we had one other person who is, she does social media and materials, marketing materials.
Thank you, and I realize that is an unfair question to
No,
come up
it's
at the
it's
end,
terrible.
but I think
just
it's
know
just
where to
helpful
go. I
for
don't
us
really
to
track
see,
it.
Yeah.
So I
see
apologize.
what we have, what we fund. Thank you.
Sorry.
Are there other questions that the board might have regarding this section? Councilwoman Heller?
On the new land acquisition, the 2.55 million that you talked about, that is specifically for an already identified parcel at Kanza. Is that correct?
Yes.
All of it?
This is part of the Phase 2 extension of Kanza Fire, which is on the west side of Highway 75. This board had previously authorized that as part of the overall concept. You approved previously. We have acquired 40 acres. That's in the middle of that. There's actually 560 acres that are left in Phase 2 as we've continued to do more engineering work and analysis of that site. We think there's actually probably about 270 to 300 acres that's really good, viable, usable land. And so this cost represents a portion of that site, not all of the 560 acres. We don't really want to acquire it until there is a need. We have 250 acres directly adjacent to Mars in phase 1, but we continue to have companies who are looking at that site, and we've had projects that have looked at needing more than the 250 acres. We've actually pitched that site on another project that we're currently under consideration for. Being able to assemble those size of sites is not easy, especially where you've got good highway or infrastructure. And having that available is quite an asset that makes us more competitive. But we're not proposing to buy it. If you notice under the footnote, it does say it's contingent upon further approval of both the Go-Topeka Board and the JEDO Board. So we're just trying to prepare to budget in case, but we're not here tonight to ask for your permission to proceed.
And so if we were to consider a different parcel for some other business that came in, that would be other funds then?
We would have to come back to this body for approval, and you could take it from that fund if you'd want, or out of the incentive funds if you'd want.
Thank you, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Brad. This time then I believe that we would move towards public comment regarding the proposed strategic plan and budget. I would note that there's a time limit of 4 minutes unless the board, by majority vote, extends the limitation. Debates, question, answer, dialogue, or discussion with board members will not count towards the 4-minute time limitations. I do have signed up a number of people. I'll call your name and then I'll call the next person who is to come, and so we can kind of keep this orderly. I have Lazone Grays first. And Ms. Grace, before you begin, I will note, I did not call out, but Mr. Ledbetter is next on to speak.
Good evening, members of the Joint Economic Development Organization. My name is Lazone Grays, concerned citizen of Topeka, Kansas. Don't have a lot of time within 4 minutes, so I'll try to rush through here. One of the things that the mayor had mentioned as far as the funding for the 712, I didn't come to speak to that, but I just wanted to mention that if it was correct that the monies were coming out of the women and minority funds, or should it be in the entrepreneurial, I do believe that it should have been in the entrepreneurial. I think that just because money is there, it's not really just to just sort of go for anything. Those monies should be targeted to help those designated populations that the monies were geared for. And no disrespect, I'm not exactly sure if the demographic of those who will benefit the most really fit into that tight market of what that women, minority, and disadvantaged business realm should be. So I would think that there was an ability of getting the same amount of funds, not to derail that, but to get the funds from another portion. I think that would be much better than the way that it was done. Reading the agenda, I really did not know where the on-ramp was to come and speak to what I'm sharing with you here. I don't know how, not being at the table and a part of how the contractor puts together its plan to present to you, and how would someone else come and present what you would like to consider for consideration. I understand Councilmember Everhart's look at the measurements, goals, and examples. But if you're only getting one side, then it makes it hard for people who are not part of your economic development consultancy, to share their information. If there's an ability of requesting funds be put into the budget for 2015, I have come here on a consistent basis just when it deals with youth employment. If the definition for economic development isn't just about business and business startup, but it's about workforce training. And it's nothing that says it's just about adult workforce training and development, but we have young people too. And if looking at the higher unemployment of certain young people in this neighborhood, in this community here, I don't know where to continue to go and request funds for youth employment. CDBG funds, no. I've come here, no. And so what I've tried to do is lay out what the economic impact of young people in this city, what they provide already. And these are some very conservative numbers. And so the reason that whether it's 60,000 to Heartland Visioning or 30,000 dedicated to youth employment, at least so that a program could be initiated by the summer of 2015, I would like to request that the JEDO would find fit to making some monies appropriated there. I've shared with you copies of the changes of what used to be the Workforce Investment Act, which is now the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act, so that you could realize that it's not just me saying this, but this is sort of a federal or national priority, reprioritization of investing in young people, especially those that have conditions that most individuals who are going to be minority, low-income individuals in targeted neighborhoods are going to face. I'd like to request additional time.
There's been a request for additional time. Lazone, do you have an idea of, would you like
I would like 4 minutes.
4 minutes? There's a request for 4 minutes. Is there a motion? So moved by Commissioner Bueller. Is there a second? Seconded by the Deputy Mayor Everhart. We could have a roll call vote on that.
Commissioner Bueller?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Archer?
Yes.
Mayor Wolgast?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Everhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Hiller?
Yes.
Councilmember Schmidt?
Thank you. So there was too many moving parts to talk about there. So I just want to focus my effort now on this youth employment portion of it. I think that young people are paying into the system, and after 12 years, there has never really been anything to do to reinvest back into those for the economic impact that they are putting in. The reason that the program was cut for its budget from the city was because of budgetary reasons. And that was $45,000 a year that was being spent. Now, even on the lowest number, young people probably spend or directly influence the spending of $120,000 a year in this city. I don't think that this amount is asking too much. Young people normally are not going to get in their car and go and spend this paycheck in Lawrence or Kansas City where adults may do that. There's more than enough information that I have shared over the years here on the values and benefits of youth employment, reducing dropouts, increasing achievement, increasing graduation rates. And so I would like the city, the county to take a stand. If the JEDO is setting priorities, and you say that priorities are going to be that we're going to decrease youth unemployment, we're going to decrease the unemployment of black men, numbers that I've been, and other minorities that I've been saying, then I think that whoever your contractor is should then structure whatever their plan is around what you set as the priorities, which is what the public wants you to do, is set the priorities. I believe that it's a good investment in young people in this city. It's not like the program, and I'm sorry, Mayor, when I met with you, but I have not been able to find any of the articles that was written on the Summer Youth Employment Program. I have not been able to get any feedback from any of the former staff, city or county, that knew more about the program. But I do know that the program was not taken away because it was a failed program. It was a budgetary situation from the city's perspective. I believe that a program should be expanded. When you not just look at the JEDO funds, but these are funds that other federal and state funds that are already in play, I believe that there's a better leveraging opportunity of funds, that if you have $30,000 from here that you commit, and then the preference priorities are already set of the new Workforce Investment and Opportunities funds, that leveraging those funds, possibly CDBG, possibly funds from DCF, so that it wouldn't be a $30,000 program, but it would be more, but it would have the support and investment from the city and the county through the JEDO, just so that there is an expectation and anticipation that this summer that there will be a summer youth employment program in the city of Topeka, Shawnee County, even if that means young people working in places outside of the city, but in other parts of the county. So that's really my premise of coming in and speaking here. I don't think that it should be like the program that was run. I think that there should be a better program put together so that young people who are participating are actually getting some gainful skills that they can move into the workforce. And this age range that I'm speaking of, the summer program was for 14 and 15-year-olds, those who are right below the age of getting a regular job. So again, whether they are spending the money or they are influencing the spending, no one can discount the economic impact that young people pay in the city. And I believe that, without further ado, that you should reinvest in the monies that they spend in this city.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Zone Gray? Mayor Wolgast?
Thank you, Chairman. The materials you have, and by the way, as he mentioned, we have discussed this several times, different possibilities. Material, the supporting documents you have here, this is from Workforce One.
Yes, sir.
And so are they promoting this? Thank you.
Oh.
No, it's on, I guess. Is Workforce One overseeing this, supporting it, putting it together?
No, sir. Workforce One is really probably the place that disseminates the information about what the policies are. It is the U.S. Department of Labor Employment and Training Administration. That is the one that set the regulations, set the directives and things. So that is the body that prioritizes whatever programs that are going to be funded and acted out of workforce centers across the United States. Therefore, that's why it added the emphasis on work-based learning, which that emphasis from the Department of Labor is summer jobs, pre-apprenticeships, and then how they actually have created new youth elements, which includes financial literacy, and for the first time ever, that funds for and priority for entrepreneurial skills training for youth, 14 to 21, has been added. So these are moving parts with new opportunities that I think to look at. If this is a national direction, I think that local government should actually be moving in line with it. So Workforce One is just the portal to get information and be educated. They have a lot of the webinars and bring the people from the federal departments, state departments to talk about, to answer questions about what are the new changes in this legislation, and give some, to identify some of the best practices that have been going on.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Councilwoman Hiller?
I think we got something as a council on that today, an adult program that was part of Workforce One through the state. But I thought that that particular program, and just help me with it, was funded, that it's part of the Department of Labor, and that it's part of the workforce programming that they do now on their own. And then, so would this be as well? I mean,
Again, Workforce One is not the U.S. Department of Labor. It's just a portal where you can get a lot of the research and the information and things of that nature there. If the funds came for, and I received that just as well.
Okay.
And that's more of a state-driven initiative
Right.
other than federal. And that's for adults. My being here tonight is for this youth concern. I do have to apologize that the part of the reintegration that Mr. Smathers was talking about, if the ball has been dropped, it was because of me. I have personal family issues that I got to deal with, and I'm trying to find other men, to step up to the plate, and I'm glad there's some people in the back here who have pledged to work with me on that. But Workforce One is not the federal government. It is just the portal. The directives coming from the Department of Labor, Employment and Training Administration, that's where the guidance comes from. Now, across the nation, we have moved from the Workforce Investment Act, which had its priorities, to the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act, which has sort of the same, but it added, and it also says that more emphasis on spending these public funds should go to those programs that leads to certifications for in-demand industries, and to focus on those individuals who have barriers to employment, such as gaps in employment, ex-felons, and things of that nature there, from the adult side. So I shared with you I can't remember which page it is, but it shows what are the additional conditions. What young people are we talking about? We're talking about those with basic skill deficient, ex-offenders, homeless, foster care, those aging out of foster care, pregnant and parenting, disabled, and da-da-da-da-da. Things that are not being done, it's not the schools that do these things. It's not DCF that does these things. The bigger picture is that there are other available funds through the Workforce Center, through the state agencies, that I think that can be paired with this here, just to do this one thing, youth employment. And not just summer youth employment. I believe something should be developed year-round for youth employment, especially targeting those young people who are age 14 and 15 years old.
Thank you. Maybe just a comment to the body. I really appreciate that Lizone brings these issues forth, but I really think as we move forward in this strategic planning that we've discussed today, we need to be looking and just refreshing on whether what our intent was with the economic development funds that we have was to create jobs or to do workforce development, or just where that line is, particularly if somebody else is involved in it. And I don't know the answer. I just think you raised some really good points. And
I only go off of the definition that was set on economic development, and workforce training and development is a part of that definition. So I don't think that, I'm not adding anything to the table that was not already there. I'm trying to make sure that the focus isn't just always on business and startup, because the things that are hurting some segments of the population isn't about business. It's about high, chronic, statistically significant unemployment and lack of skills is one of the things that really deters people from getting a job. It's not about job creation. It's about preparing people for the jobs that already exist here.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you very much. Our next speaker for public, the comment is Joseph Ledbetter, to be followed by Carol Marple.
Evening, managing body of the Economic Development Funds, JEDO. I want to comment on some of the earlier things we're talking about before I go into my other concerns. First off, it's always a fair question to ask any manager of any unit that's getting public funds how many employees they have. It's a very fair question. They should know, especially if they've been here a while. I will say that Mr. Smathers and I have met at my office, and we've talked about veterans, and Mr. Lazone's a veteran, and I think he'd be a great resource to help mentor veterans and help veterans. It'd be nice if somebody would hire him to do some of that. I'm a veteran. There's 16,000 veterans in this community. They're certainly not all retired. Many of them are looking for jobs, and many of them continue to change careers. That's something that happens a lot nowadays. You can go to law school after you're 30. You can do different things. So I would just tell you that we are in a changing economy, and after 13 years, I think it would be high time that we had some performance standards from this body. I definitely support what I heard earlier tonight and seconded. I think you should have passed it, but anyway, what concerned me was that some of the members here didn't know what the rule was about adding to the agenda. Did they receive the email saying 1 or 2 weeks ago you could add something to the agenda? I don't know. I'm not privy to your emails, but it seems like a due process question when people don't know the basic rules, and I think they should be enlightened. So maybe you might, go through all those rules some night so that the new members or new voting members know what those are. Now, looking at this budget, first off, I am opposed to the Heartland acquisition, or not acquisition, but the Heartland funding. I did have them out to a High Crest meeting. They had 4 priorities that they had set by a very small group of people. I didn't see any East Siders in that group. I certainly am not an East Sider anymore. I have been. But I certainly represent a lot of people on the East Side that have a lot of needs. And I brought up some of those needs, and they said, that's not part of our priority list. I said, well, who made up the priority list? So they showed me a PowerPoint with 6 individuals on it, and I said, that's ridiculous. Now, let me go back to a point I just made about performance standards. If this body, after 13 years of experience, and I know y'all haven't been here that long, some of you have been here 8, if you haven't gained enough experience to do that job, that's not good. But you do have experts that are readily available to you, and they're not going to cost you anything. They're called citizens. You have 172,000 citizens in this county that can readily give you some good ideas, and some ideas for performance standards, which we should have already had, and goals, setting goals. Goals on employment numbers, goals on salaries that we're looking for to try to get into this community, not just minimum wage jobs, which is a big complaint I hear. We need performance standards, that was the word that was first used, and we need goals set by this body. And you should have done it a long time ago. I'm glad it's finally being discussed. Thank you, Ms. Everett. Now I'm going to ask for more time, because so far I've just commented on what you were talking about earlier. I'm going to request,
Okay, is there a request for extension?
I am requesting extension.
How much would you like to ask for? Or is it a 4-minute extension?
How much did Mr. Smathers get? I'll take half. I'm kidding. I'm not going to talk that long.
Is there a motion for an extension? There has been a motion by Council or Deputy Mayor Everhart for an extension of time to speak. Is there a second?
We need a number.
Is 4 minutes? For 4 minutes, is there a second? Second by Councilman Schmidt. Roll call.
Commissioner Bueller?
No.
Commissioner Cook?
No.
Commissioner Archer?
No.
Mayor Wolgass?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Everhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Hiller?
Yes.
Councilmember Schmidt?
Pass?
4-3.
Thank you, the 4 members of the city. Next, I want to talk about the budget on this one-page document that's been laid out. My first problem with it is it's 1 page. My second problem with it is it's only been out in the public by email for about 5 days. When we're dealing with $5 million of public money, this should be noticed up at least 30 to 45 days out. We should have a copy of it online. We should be able to access it. If we have to call a clerk's office, that's fine, but we should be able to get it. And then we can come here prepared to discuss it. That's done with just about every other public budget I've seen. And I think it's It's wrong that these things are just brought up at the last minute. On the land acquisition, $2.5 million is half of their budget. We do not need more land. We've got about 600 acres of land that is vacant. Some of it is farmland. You see that in the income, $10,000. We don't need more land. And Bimbo Bakery only used 20 acres. So every year we hear this hoopla that we're going to need more land, and we don't need it. We haven't needed it since the Mars acquisition, which was signed in 2011. We have a lot of vacant land. I'm concerned about some of the things that were said by Mr. Kinzinger tonight. He said this next phase would be 560 acres. 370 of it is usable. Exactly. I've been saying that a lot of it is wetlands. I've got a copy of the site plan from 2009. And I agree, it should not be bought on that part. I want to know what part of this budget is going to the Chamber of Commerce. I think it's high time we got those numbers and that we had accountability and transparency. We know from an article earlier this year, September 27th, that the Chamber, or the Go-To-Pika admitted they give about $500,000 a year to the Chamber of Commerce. That is in direct conflict with their 990s that are signed by their president and CEO, which is more like $900,000 a year. You can go back and check those out. We've made those part of the record from time to time. I'd like to know exactly how much money of this budget that you are being asked to approve is going to the Chamber of Commerce through Go-To-Pika. I'd like that answer tonight, an exact number. And then I'd like to know how many more FTEs we're paying for with that. That's a second question. I'm opposed to these improvements listed on 49th because I think 49th should have already been improved. I've seen that in the budget year after year. They've got 75 acres on 49th that they should have developed before they bought any further. So why haven't they developed this street? But just to spend it on design with no anticipation of ever finishing the work, I don't believe in that. I think that's a waste of money until you decide to finish the street in its entirety. And by the way, there is a new bridge there. So that takes up a lot of the costs they were saying they would have to make. That bridge is being built, I think it's already constructed. But you can go out there and look at it. It's just off Topeka Boulevard. I've got a lot more to say, but I do want that transparency and accountability, and rather than belabor you with another request, since I only got 4 the last time, and it looks like the county members don't want me to talk, I'll just go ahead and sit down for now until the next item.
Any questions for Mr. Ledbetter? Seeing none, thank you. Carol Marple, who will be then followed by John Hunter.
Let's see here. Thank you. I'm Carol Marple, a citizen of the county. I'd like to thank Mr. Gray. He said it a lot better than I could because I have a proposal, suggestion, whatever, and I didn't know how to do it. So I'm just here and I'm going to talk about it. There's other things with the budget I could talk about, but I came here specifically to talk about the zoo. I dislike waste. I did a Cora here and asked what the zoo spends every year on feed. Now, I think everybody will agree with me that a lot of the voters voted the sales tax in because of the zoo. And we want to support the zoo within the county. I just don't understand. We have farm ground, we have hay ground. I know about feeding livestock, and zoo animals are basically livestock in a different form. You know, I did not know till I sat here that they made $10,000 off their farm revenue. I think that's not very good. My proposal is, or my suggestion, whatever you want to call it, is that since the county owns farm ground and hay ground, let's turn the grain produced and the hay taken off of it, which I'm sorry to say I don't think there's any because you've not been very good stewards of the land. It's not going to be an overnight thing that we can shift this into production so that the zoo can use it. But why spend money for something that we own? And that's what we're doing. The zoo has to spend money to go out and buy feed. And just to give you an example, a bushel of corn today costs $3.44. If you bought the very same bushel of corn, which the zoo is on the buying end, it's going to cost you $3.75. Now that's 31 cents a bushel difference. You take that for a year feeding these animals, you know, there's going to have to be some working together. You're going to have to work with the farmer. You're going to have to work with Mr. Wiley. But why are we buying something that we have? You know, and I'm not saying that if we could provide this to the zoo, that the zoo should lose their funding for their feed. I think that, you know, there's always drought years, you know, who knows? But if it frees up money that he can make improvements or do different things at the zoo, why not? Especially if we're making $10,000. Let's manage it correctly and let's get some good out of it for our citizens who all enjoy the zoo. I'm done.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Marple? Commissioner Bueller.
Thank you, Commissioner Cook. Ms. Markle, have you had any discussions with the zoo about these ideas?
Yes, I talked to Mr. Wiley one day and I asked him if it had ever been suggested and he said no. He said, I don't think anybody ever thought about it. And then quite frankly, I had an appointment with Mr. Wiley, it's been over a year ago, to visit about this, and he stood me up. And then he was supposed to call me, but he never did. So no, I do not know Mr. Wiley's feelings on that, but he is a very good zoo director, and I would think that if he is provided with some extra money, he would be all in favor of it. You know, I'm not asking to short the animals or anything like that, and on a personal note, I can say that the hay that we produce in this state is very good. Ben and I sold 2 barnfuls of hay last year. We had a broker, a middleman, but it all went to a zoo up north, and he bought that zoo bought 2 complete barnfuls of hay. So it's not that we're lacking. I mean, we have the resources right here to make this work.
Thank you for your answer.
Other questions for Ms. Marple? Thank you very much. Next, we'll have John Hunter, who is to be followed by Gina Millsap.
Good evening. John Hunter, Executive Director of Heartland Visioning. Well, as part of the Go Topeka budget, it is my pleasure to provide for you just a brief overall statement regarding our activities for Heartland Visioning during the 2014 year. During 2014, Heartland Visioning has been rebuilding its organizational structure. We have been transitioning our leadership, and we have accelerated our grassroots efforts through community engagement process. Currently, there are some 65 visionary volunteers. Most of them are organizational leaders in our community who are addressing the various issues associated with the 5 priorities that were established, all based on community responses. One of our priorities, the Dynamic Core, has a network team that is chaired by Mayor Walgast. This team functions as an oversight group tracking the projects that are under development between 10th Street on the south and Gordon Street on the north. We consider these areas as a major economic development district with obtainable goals and measurable results. And like the NOTO project, which is a direct result of the Heartland Visioning process, through the efforts of our community and volunteers who are involved in that. Today, we now know that we have some 31 new businesses that have been added to a very repressed historic district. And that district today, during the course of any month, there are some 2,000 people who will come there visiting and shopping on a monthly basis. And we do know that sales tax revenue for that area has risen substantially. Heartland Vision is also making an effort through our education of our volunteers and the general population on the multitude of community initiatives that are going on. Things like Heartland Healthy Neighborhoods, the Pine Ridge Project, the Net Reach program in the Highcrest neighborhood. We work in collaboration throughout the year with groups like Shawnee County Parks and Recreation, the Great Overland Station, the Topeka Metropolitan Transit Authority, Downtown Topeka Incorporated, Visit Topeka, and a host of other important organizations throughout our community. Heartland Visioning has also provided financial support through our grants process for projects like the Topeka Community Conversation on Poverty, the Born Learning Trail at Pine Ridge, the most recent Topeka TEDx project, which was really exciting, and the Quincy School and Noto partnership, which focuses on a creative, safe walkway for our school children. We are driven by issues dealing with improvement to our overall quality of life and economic development. Unique in our process, we pride ourselves on being a voice of the community concerns, and we strive to build a trusting community that will brand Topeka and Shawnee County as a fun and exciting place to live. Throughout the year, we have solicited financial support from individuals, businesses, and corporations. Our efforts will provide approximately $130,000 in private support for 215. We believe this is a clear indication that our business community recognizes the benefits of our organization to bring forth positive and important change. Our mission has not changed since 2008. We still believe that we can create a growing and dynamic community with a superior quality of life. And we are excited that 5 years ago, the ideas that came out of the meetings with some 5,000 citizens, that some of those ideas that were dreams at that time, such as the riverfront development, that now within the next 5 years are in reach. And we can look forward to a time when we possibly be boating on the river between the two bridges, and we're excited about that. Visioning is a complex process. It takes time. Our vision for 215 is clear, and we hope that through the budget process tonight, the financial support required for us to continue our efforts will be approved so that we can continue moving forward with both the city and the county. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mr. Hunter? Commissioner Archer.
Thank you, John. You didn't have the tax subsidy for 2014, but it sounds like you're making progress and doing well. What is the community going to be missing if you don't get $60,000 from Go Topeka?
Well, when I came in April, the first part of April, one of the first things that I had to do was go line by line through the budget and make some serious cuts because we were minus that funding. As well as adjustments that were made as a result of my salary as a consultant instead of a full-time executive director position salary. And I can tell you this has been a very lean and conservative year. There are things that we feel we really need to do, and I'd like to mention two of them for you. I have put into the budget, which has been approved by our management committee, and it does include this amount of money, but two initiatives that we have been working on. One is with KTWU, Eugene Wilson, over the last couple of months on preparing for what we call an awareness campaign. That campaign is going to be designed to introduce people in the community not only to Heartland Visioning, but to the various organizations that are doing some profound things in our community, but simply do not have within their budget the ability to advertise the good that they do. For instance, the Pine Ridge Project, the Net Reach Project at Hillcrest. So our plans are to initiate that type of an awareness-wide community campaign that will be aired on KTWU, and we hope the other stations as well. The second thing that I have done in making budget adjustments, again, based on if we receive this funding, is to move Emma Starkey, our communications assistant, to the position of Director of Communications and Community Engagement. Emma is doing a wonderful job getting out to all of the major organizations such as Heartland Heartland Healthy Neighborhoods, Safe Streets, and other types of community organizations. And I want to focus her time specifically on community engagement projects that we're planning for 215. And then to offset that, we are hoping to hire a 20-hour-a-week part-time assistant who will take over some of the secretarial administrative types of duties for Emma. Again, if we can't move forward with those two components, we'll be an organization that'll be functioning with basically one hand tied behind our back. There's only so long that you can continue on in a very conservative budget posture and still be effective.
Other questions for Mr. Hunter?
Thank you.
Next, we'll have Gina Millsap. I had Jim Parrish next, but it appears that he's left, so it'll be followed by Lucky DeFries.
Good evening. I'm Gina Millsap. I think most of you know I'm the CEO of the Topeka and Shawnee County Public Library. That's my day job. It's also been my privilege to serve as the chair of Heartland Visioning for the past 3 years. This is kind of my final hurrah, as a matter of fact. So I'm hoping for a positive outcome. There's a lot of pressure on you here, folks. But I've been involved with Heartland Visioning as a volunteer and a member of the steering committee since its inception. So I lived here for 9 years. I moved here from Ames, Iowa, then originally from Columbia, Missouri. I don't want to hear it. And I will tell you this is a different community from the one I moved to. It is a very different community. How is it different? There is more optimism about the present and the future. There's a greater willingness to collaborate and partner and leverage resources, and that is in the private sector, the nonprofit sector, and government sector, and among individuals. There are more people who are committed to creating and implementing a shared vision for this community so that it grows and prospers. And a lot of that stems from our increasing social capital. Communities need a lot of different types of capital to succeed, right? You're talking about that tonight. You're talking about money for a lot of different things. But that also includes social networks that are formed because people, organizations, and businesses see a compelling interest in working together to get things done. And that growing social capital has been a priority of Heartland Visioning. It's our bread and butter, and we've done it very well. And there's no one else in the community that's doing this particular aspect. So you can't write a check to obtain people's interest and their trust and engagement. But you can invest in Heartland Visioning and trust us to facilitate the collaboration of the private sector, which already is making a significant investment, the nonprofit sector, government sector, and individuals in this community, because they're the ones doing the hard work to make this a great community. But we're facilitating the collaboration that's making those things happen. And I make no apologies for bragging about that, because it operates under the radar. You don't necessarily see it. If it's not happening, you will notice. And so, Commissioner Archer, you ask a very good question. Why are we still seeing this in the budget? I sat in the JEDO board meeting last year when you said, I'm not going to support this anymore. And I'm asking for your support this year because, first of all, we've reinvigorated and reinvented Heartland Visioning. We have new leadership. We have a great new steering committee. I will also mention, too, that the series of community meetings that we conducted in the last quarter of 2013 included 400 people around this community. And that is a statistically significant sample of a population base of 179,000. Can you tell I'm a librarian? And so we do have, if you will, a mandate from the people to focus on the priorities that we've set. And I think you'll agree they're in alignment with the interest of both the city and the county. So thank you very much. And I'll stand for questions.
Are there any questions for Ms. Millsap? I do have one.
Yes.
As part of Heartland Visioning, you've mentioned that you receive funds from the private sector. You're seeking funds from the public sector. What about the library board? Does the library board help contribute to the funds of the...
We have contributed $5,000 every year since the beginning of Heartland Visioning, and my board continues to support Heartland Visioning.
Okay. And are there other governmental entities that are also contributing outside of the library board?
Such as?
I don't know. I mean, do you receive funds from other governmental entities?
Not from other governmental entities.
Okay. And so
I'm trying
Would
to
the-
think of who they would be, other
Well,
than city and county.
that's specifically, have you ever made a budget request directly from the city or the county to be part of their budget?
The city and the county, individually?
Yes.
I think initially that was the strategy, and the response is that the preference for the city and the county was that the requests go through JEDO and that sales tax be utilized to fulfill the request. That's my understanding.
I asked that, in the 2 years that I've been a commissioner, I have not had a presentation from from Heartland Visioning during the budget process. Other groups and organizations have asked for funding, but I know that Heartland Visioning has not. So I just didn't know the background and history.
We were instructed to go to this body. So that's what we did.
Are there any other questions the board might have? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Lucky DeFries, to be followed by Jeff Weethorn.
Good evening. My name is Lucky DeFries, and I will not take up. Sorry. Oh, no problem. No problem.
It's city equipment.
I'm pleased to be here tonight. I will not take up much of your time. I just would like to thank you for your collaboration with Go Topeka over the years. I think I may be the last remaining member of the Go Topeka board that was part of the initial group that helped form Go Topeka and then ultimately helped create JEDO. I think all of us should be proud and pleased with what has evolved over the years and what we've been able to accomplish. I think through the engagement and the collaboration that we've had with you, especially here in recent years, some of the conversations that we've been able to have, I think that's laying the groundwork for a lot of things that we can continue to do in the future, and some things that we can improve upon. And I think the conversations that we've had have helped lay the groundwork for that, and I, for one, look forward to what we can accomplish in the future. So simply thank you for your help, and I would encourage your favorable consideration of the strategic plan and the budget that's being presented tonight. Thank you very much, and I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Are there any questions for Mr. DeFries? Councilwoman Hiller?
Yes.
Well, I'll throw something out to you, and you can react if there is a reaction. I haven't had the privilege of serving on the Go Topeka board as some of my colleagues have, but I really appreciate what you all are doing. Also, in terms of the conversation we had at the beginning of the meeting about JEDO taking the reins and establishing some performance goals and looking at best practices in the future, my understanding is that members of the Go Topeka board have had that conversation as well, and that's partly what encouraged me to be part of raising that issue here. I hope I'm right, because I feel like that is a collaborative thing to do, not on one that's in appreciation of what you all have done.
I'm sorry.
I mean, I think over the years, we have tried to be responsive to JEDO and try and, work in a fashion that, where we're responding to, the kinds of, questions or, whatever it might be that you're looking at. So, I mean, certainly, I think there has been an attempt to, set certain guidelines and criteria, upon which, we can, be measured in terms of whether we're meeting the kinds of goals and objectives that all of us would like to see in terms of our economic development efforts.
And I put that forth because that's my understanding as well. And we don't cross over, oddly, as boards, the JEDO board and the Go Topeka board, very often at all. That was one reason when it's been about 2 years ago now, and I was one of the people that pushed for it, for us to jointly look at best practices and begin to prepare for this time. And we did have 2 sessions that I thought were very good and very informative and productive, and I hope that we continue to do that as we look forward.
And I think each year, as part of the presentations, I think typically Go Topeka tries to go through and look at kind of what the objectives had been and what the progress has been during the course of the year, all of which should, go towards whether or not, Go Topeka is continuing to, kind of meet the needs that all of us, are looking for.
And again, it's my understanding you've been having those discussions recently as well, and I just appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from Mr. DeFreeze?
Thank you very much.
Next, we'll hear from Jeff Weatharn, to be followed by Alan Towle.
Good evening, I'm Jeff Weatharn. Some of you know me as the attorney, sometimes attorney for Go Topeka. Just want to clarify a couple things real quick, and I'm not real up to speed on them, but I wanted to let you know, there's a question about why we haven't developed 49th Street, or why Go Topeka has not developed 49th Street. 49th Street's in a benefit district when it was platted by the city. And once we start developing the land on the north or the south, we're going to have to help pay for that, the improvement of that road. So we keep it in the budget.
Mr. Eckert, did you hit the button?
I did not.
All right.
Yeah, it's my fault.
I'm used to being on the clock. So anyhow, that is why it's on it's been on the budget for quite a while. We don't want to spend those monies until we absolutely have to. And another comment was made regarding the tax return and a recent newspaper article. If I understand the issue or the confusion, the newspaper article focused on the public dollars that were transferred to the chamber in the context of a service agreement. So there might be a little difference, but generally that was the difference. There is private dollars that also go towards that service agreement. So I just want to try to clarify that a little bit. I'm not the accountant, but I think that's probably what that confusion is by one of the commentators. And then I'd like to take one more minute and go on a tangent and take my lawyer's hat off, kind of, and say, we have a lot of discussions about Go Topeka and their finances. I practice law. I have a lot of contacts with accountants. Work with a lot of great accountants in this town. Mize Hauser is one of the best. I mean, and the auditor of Go Topeka is CBiz. Excellent firm as well. And then we're blessed with some great accounting firms in this town. But sometimes I seem to be, there's comments that are made that seem to suggest that something weird's going on. These guys are excellent. So these guys and gals and firms are excellent. So anyhow, a little bit of editorial comment there. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Weatharn? All right, thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from Alan Towle.
Thank you very much. I'm Alan Towle. I am currently the chair of Go Topeka, but I'm also a lifelong citizen of Topeka and a taxpayer and all of those things that go along with that privilege. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for all that you do for our community, because I know as an elected official, you get bombarded with a lot of information that you have to learn real quick. And just because you became elected doesn't mean you automatically know everything about everything, that you do have to do a lot of research to make the right decisions, looking out for what's in the best interest of our community. And so I do appreciate the time and effort that's necessary to do that. And the questions that come up is, are we doing this right, and is this the right way to do it? Would like to address Ms. Hiller's comments. Sorry, blank, I got going. One of the things that in the November board meeting for Go Topeka, there was a lot of discussion about, are we looking at, we've got a new period of time, 17 years, starting because we still have a couple of years of the old tax plus 15 of the new tax. Are we doing it right? Should we be relooking at, has economic development changed? Are there best practices out there that are different than what they were? As we had a pretty lengthy discussion on that, sent back some instructions to find out good pricing to have a consultant come in and look at that. As I recall, it was the following Tuesday night that the City Council had a very similar discussion about Go Topeka towards the end of their meeting. And so I had to, on our December board meeting, apologize because I derailed going out and asking for consultants' information, because it seemed to me that there was a lot of discussion about should that evaluation be done by Go Topeka hiring it, or should JEDO or the city or the county or somebody outside of that go look at that question. So rather than us looking at it and spending money twice, that might end up somebody, elected officials saying, wait a minute, we wanted to spend that money instead of you. We'll let you do that. That's okay. And so I talked to Jim Colson, because he was representing the city, and at that meeting to kind of learn a little bit about where that was going. And I think that's something that does need to have some future discussion and going forward on where it is. But we have continued the discussion that needs to be done, but really derailed or stopped the process for the immediate time, with the hope that we can work with the city and the county and JEDO, however that needs to be done, since I'm not quite as astute to the political side of things, so that we can see that it's done correctly and can be viewed as an independent. I will tell you personally, as Jeff commented, people we hire we believe are independent, or we wouldn't hire them to come in and audit us. We do think it's very important on what we do. I guess I got another minute, but we do think it's very important that what we're doing with the taxpayer funds is the right thing for our community. And the reason we went out and raised money from the private sector was so that we could make sure that the taxpayers' money was being most efficiently used for incentives as most we could to get to that direction. Thank you very much. I do truly appreciate everything that you guys do.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Towle?
Yes.
Mayor Wolgast?
Thank you. Thank you for providing that overview of what you see or some people see as a role we go in with JEDO. I don't know what word to say, whether going forward or new priorities, or et cetera. And I think they should be looked at. And that was one of the things that I'm somewhat aware of, that the conversations that have been held. And I think that's what we need to do as a body, is look at, are we doing right? I mean, the new directions and things like that, I really think there is an interest and there would be support for that. And I think it has to be a major, significant, it's going to cost some money type study. And I think maybe it should be through JEDO that it's done, rather than the city, the county, or go to Topeka. So I think that the kernel, the start is there, and I think there's support among some of the JEDO members to go in that direction, and I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Well, certainly I do appreciate that, and I really, to be honest with you, I don't think we'll see a lot of new, but we'll see some refined best practices, things that have shifted a little bit over time. But I fully expect we're going to find out we're moving in the right direction. There's some things we can tweak to improve it. But if we find out we're completely off, then we need to get back on track.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That draws us to a close of the speakers from the public regarding the strategic business plan and budget. It has taken us 2.5 hours to get to this point. What is the pleasure of the board regarding the strategic plan and budget? Commissioner Archer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will make a motion to remove the $60,000 dedicated to Heartland Visioning from the 2015 budget.
There's been a motion to remove $60,000 allocated for Heartland Visioning from the 2015 budget. Is there a second for that motion? I will second that motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilman Schmidt.
Yes, is there a plan to reallocate that 60,000 anywhere else, or are we just going to carry that over to next year?
Commissioner Archer?
Yeah, it would just be carried over, Nathan, like we did for the 2014 when we deleted it.
Are there other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I call for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Bueller?
No.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Archer?
Yes.
Mayor Wolgast?
No.
Deputy Mayor Everhart?
No.
Councilmember Hiller?
No.
Councilmember Schmidt?
No.
Motion fails. Are there other discussions, motions, or thoughts on the strategic business plan and budget? Councilwoman Hiller. Sorry, Mayor Wolgast, you'll be next.
No, I'm sorry.
If there were, if JEDO were to undertake in the course of this year, securing a consultant to do the planning that Mr. Towle was talking about, and/or decided to get some professional assistance in setting performance goals, would we need to carve money out of that budget, or just reserve it, or do you know what we would need to do, if anything?
To To answer that, I would maybe look to our legal as to the specific contract provisions with GoToPeak as is it for the entire 5 million, or is it for an amount that we would so dedicate?
Well, the new contract, which is a 3-year contract beginning in 2015, it states that you're going to grant them at least $5 million from its EcoDevo fund to go to Topeka for the purpose of, and then it sets forth the goals that we've outlined in the past and you approved. So they have to get at least $5 million. So if they agree with you, you could reserve it. I think it has to be done by agreement. But it also says later on, it says that you get to set the budget. So it's a little bit, there's a little bit of conflict in there, but they can certainly do it by agreement. And I think if they refuse to, I think you could probably put it in the budget that way.
Does that give you clarity, Councilwoman Hiller?
Yeah, it's not completely clear.
No, it didn't, thank you. I did not look through the budget to see if there was a line item that was specifically for that purpose already.
Mr. Concerner.
I might suggest that the plug number is the incentives amount, and I would suggest that if later in this year that you decide that you need funds for that, if we do it obviously early enough, we should not have expended all of those, and I think you could direct us to do that, and I think our board would favorably consider that. I can't speak for the board, but I would think that would be an area that would be my recommendation as your president to suggest pulling the funds from. Is that okay?
Councilman Schmidt.
Just as a matter of record keeping before we take this vote and given the discussion that we've had, I would like to formally request that we add an agenda item to the next JEDO meeting to develop the process for a JEDO-derived strategic plan and performance measurement of publicly allocated economic development funds. Thank you.
Is there a second to that motion? Second by Deputy Mayor Everhart.
It wasn't a motion, it was a request, and as we were instructed earlier, as JEDO board members, we have the ability to request agenda items.
Yeah,
Council?
the control turns over to the city, but what we'll do is that we'll take your request and make sure that that gets to city staff.
Mayor Wolgass,
No, I did not. I was just had a hand up.
All right. Okay. Are there any changes, and perhaps then we should take this as two separate measures. Are there any changes, corrections, or additions to the strategic business plan that this board wishes to take? Seeing none, is there a motion to adopt the strategic business plan?
So moved.
There's been a motion made by Commissioner Archer to adopt the strategic business plan. Second by Commissioner Bueller. Is there any discussion on the adoption of the strategic business plan? Seeing none, Councilwoman Hiller.
Simply want to make a statement. Because of my concern about the performance measures, I'm going to vote no. I'm very supportive of Go Topeka and so on, so it's simply a statement because I think that's very important. We've sort of gotten balled up on the issue of establishing those performance measures by the next meeting. I'd still like to see that happen. If asking to have an agenda item for a report about progress on developing such measures is a more appropriate way to do it than what we tried before, or Councilwoman Everhart tried. Can I do that? Can I ask for an agenda item regarding development of performance measures?
Well, there is a motion on the floor as it stands presently, and
I thought that was just a request for it.
there's been a motion.
I'm getting caught in the
yeah.
technicalities of these things.
Yeah, there's been a motion, at the present time, there is a motion on the floor by Commissioner Archer to adopt the 2015 strategic business plan that was seconded by Commissioner Bueller. Obviously, you've made known your concerns with that, but this would not be I don't believe this is the appropriate time to add other qualifiers for the February meeting. Is there any other discussion then? Seeing none, I'd call for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Bueller,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Archer.
Yes.
Mayor Wolgast,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Everhart,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiller,
No.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Yes.
Passes. Next, then, is there a motion to adopt the budget for 2015 for JEDO?
So moved.
There's been a motion made by Commissioner Archer to adopt the 2015 budget as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Been a motion seconded by Commissioner Bueller. Is there any further discussion on the 2015 budget? Seeing none, I'd call a roll call vote.
Commissioner Bueller,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Archer,
Yes.
Mayor Wolgast,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Everhart,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiller,
Yes.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Yes.
I believe that would then conclude item number 6, leading us to item number 7.
Item number 7, approve 2015 cash carry forward agreement.
As required in our contract, it is up to JEDO to approve carryover of funds for Go Topeka to use in future year. As the past, we've come forward with a draft agreement that your council has approved, and this is to cover what the balance of the funds are. As you saw earlier in the meeting, there are some future commitments for contracts that were approved by you in the prior. So this covers those and also would give us some of the cash for some of the expenditures in the budget, so.
Any questions regarding that? There are some people that have signed up to speak. The first I have is Joseph Ledbetter.
Governing body of JEDO and the Economic Development Funds. I'm looking at this document. It's asking to carry forward $9,100,000 into future years. I looked at the budget, the one-page document, and it says anticipated expenditures on current commitments of approximately $1 million, $1,034,000. Seems like this is a very large amount to carry forward, especially since you have not committed to buying more land, and I certainly hope you do not. I think it's ridiculous, and I'd also like to ask if they're getting appraisals on that land, which should be part of your best practices. Always. It's public money. So I look at the amount, I say, wow, they certainly haven't needed all this money in the past. They've got now almost 2 years in the bank. So I find it interesting. I don't see any other governments doing this or any governing bodies doing this, or they are quasi-governmental the way they're set up. Kind of as a state actor, they do economic development, which is an act of a state type of government. I just don't understand why you need to bank 2 years of budget, and it seems like they didn't need as much as they've been asking for, because I'm sure that money was accumulated over a long period of time. Anyway, I'm not commenting for or against, I'm simply raising concerns. As a citizen, I've observed these for a number of years now, and I always have questions about it. It seems like a very large number that's left over from funds that were not used. And that doesn't mean we need to go buy a bunch of land to try to, get it down when we've got 600 vacant acres. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Neil Fisher, but I believe that he's left. Is Kurt Kuda here?
Good evening, Kurt Kuda, Topeka resident, also a private member of the Go Topeka board. I thought I was going to speak on the prior piece, but I get my opportunity, and I guarantee you I won't get to the 1-minute warning. First of all, I'm fairly new to Topeka, been here about 2 years, and I've been involved in economic development at the 2 other communities and the banks that I was with in those communities. And similar to what our librarian speakers testified to, sometimes we don't know what we have and how well we have it. The last 2 places I've been at, they tried to get a sales tax initiative passed several times for both quality of life as well as for incentive packages to attract businesses. Never could get it done. So I think you all should be commended for how you proposed the sales tax, how you earmarked the funds for both quality of life as well as economic development. So good job out of you. Second place I was at, we were structured in a very similar way to how Go Topeka and the Chamber's structured. They shared staff, shared space, had the expenses, and we were also funded by the city, the county, and the university, but in a different way than sales tax. What we didn't have was the amount of funding in order to take down the land that Go Topeka and JEDO has in order to have shovel-ready dirt available for businesses. You will not get past the first cut of businesses looking to move to a location if you don't have shovel-ready dirt. And so the amount of time it takes for land to get absorbed is a lot longer than 1 year. You got to be prepared. And so having the cash on hand in order to execute options when the time is right, and as a board member, we have not decided the time is right to take down that land, is very key. The absorption period is a lot longer than normal sales cycles. So the cash carryover piece to this, I support. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the plan and the budget. And with that, I'll make sure I don't hit the 1-minute warning. So I don't know if there's any questions.
Are there any questions? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
And then we had Mr. Griffin, but he's left as well. So that would then draw us to a close of public comment on this item. Is there a motion to approve the 2015 cash carry forward agreement or other motion? Councilwoman Hiller?
Also move.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Hiller to move to adopt the 2015 cash carry forward agreement of Go Topeka, seconded by Mayor Wolgast. Is there any further discussion?
I just wanted to follow up on what Mr. Kuda said and react to the earlier comments. I think it's wonderful there's money carried over. The alternative is to have just spent it because we had it, and it's important to carry it over. I appreciate the stewardship that Go Topeka has had with those dollars and appreciate that we have it to carry forward. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote then.
Commissioner Bueller?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Archer?
Yes.
Mayor Wolgast?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Everhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Hiller?
Yes.
Councilmember Schmidt?
Yes.
Passes. Then we would proceed to item number 8.
Item 8, public comment.
We have 4 individuals that have signed up to speak for public comment. The first would be Lazone Grays, to be followed by Mr. Ledbetter.
I tried to call it 4:49, so I would be the last on the list, but I guess that didn't work out. Lazone Grays, concerned citizen of Topeka, Shawnee County. I wish that carryover could have gone past with less than $30,000 or some amount to fund young people in our community. People come and go, they pop up, $10 million for a zoo, $40 million for a hotel. I go 13 years or so many, and just keep getting not even getting a clear discussion or listening to a discussion on how you feel of this being even importance as a priority. When it comes to priorities, I think that the best indicator of is economic development working is if it is reducing unemployment? Is it reducing poverty? And I don't remember hearing the word poverty at all here. With X amount of money, I would think that with a clear path, you could show that we reduced poverty by 0.0%. We reduced this demographic's unemployment by 2%. But by having nothing, by not setting it as a priority, things can sound good, and each year you can do things, such as the robotics program, which is a good program, good for young individuals. But considering greatschools.org, that particular high school, if 10 is the highest rank and 1 is 0, then it's still ranked number 1. So some things sound good. I think someone had mentioned, when you get down into the weeds, is it actually making a difference? I spoke about leverage funds because these are funds here, and there are things that will happen throughout the next year. You just never know when they're going to come up. There's like the Kansas Broadband Initiative. There's maybe some monies, I don't know, but it may not be enough to do everything. Why isn't there some process of making sure that monies are not put to the side so that when other opportunities come up to fund some things, that it's not just solely one pot of money that's coming up? Part of what I've been doing with the LMI training, there are other funds that will come available. Not that they will need a match, but at least the monies will be there, so in case that a match is needed, so you can get more money to come into the area to do other things, I would think that that would just seem to be sort of prudent. But more importantly, is this part about poverty and unemployment and economic development. If economic development can be deemed, have you reduced unemployment? Have you reduced poverty? If the answer is no, then people who are citizens can only look to the elected body to do something about that. We can't set the priorities. If I was to move out of the way when all the people who were here, you talk about community, but that doesn't look like the community. Where are they engaging other people who look like me? At the table where they were making parts of discussions. It's not here. If I wouldn't come here speaking to these issues year after year, ask yourself, who else would be coming here speaking to these specific issues? I'm not here for my health because it's not very well, but I am concerned that you look and you think that everything is okay, and that's not always the case. That you should try to make sure that decision making is encompassing other people at the table who look like this community. You know what I mean?
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Next, we'll hear from Joseph Ledbetter, to be followed by Camille Knoll.